I wish you and yours a very, very, very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and good morning to you. Welcome to another edition of the Art Lewis Show for Christmas week Monday. Nice to have you with us. Later on, after the 10 o'clock news, we're going to talk to Virgil Collier. He has a company called Beacon Enterprises. They remanufacture musical instruments and give them to youngsters who could not afford them otherwise. At 11 o'clock, Linda Shepard will be in studio with us from Miles Market. She's also written a children's book we're going to talk about. But for this hour, we say good morning to State Representative Matthew Bierlein. Matthew, good morning.
Good morning, Art.
How are you?
Hey, you know what? Not too bad. It's not quite as cold as it was last week. And,
yeah.
It wasn't freezing when I went out to take care of the animals this morning. So,
what kind of animals you have?
We have chickens and goats. We have about 40 chickens and we have 3 goats.
Do you really? No kidding.
We do. Yeah. It's we got the chickens to try to teach the kids some responsibility, and I think what it really did was made my wife and I have to go out and take care of them when it's freezing cold, and the goats are just pets.
The goats are pets and the chickens are egg layers, right?
They are, yep.
A real rural guy, but you always have been. I mean, you've always been out there in the country, haven't you?
I have. We really enjoyed the quiet and the light. I went outside last night to do a few things, and there's just no natural light out here. Or there's no force light. It's all just natural. So when you look up, you can see all the stars, and there's something about that that's just really great.
Well, it's I assume, bad word I know, but this is a quiet week in Lansing, I assume.
It is. Yeah. We finished up last Thursday night for the year on session, and then there's technically session I think tomorrow to enroll any bills from Thursday, and then we go sine die. So that's the end of the legislative cycle for the year. So then any bills that didn't reach immediate effect will go into law 90 days after the end of that session cycle. And then per the Constitution, we can't come back until the second Wednesday of January. We have a set constitutional start date every year.
Really? So nothing gets done the first week of January either?
No. So that's the cycle we're in right now. I mean, we're not. There's lots of days that we're not in Lansing that there's things going on, but this is a slower time. I have a couple meetings still this week back here in district, but it is a slower time of year.
So let's go to that second Wednesday, and what's on the agenda? What are the big topics you're going to have to tackle right off the bat?
Well, so we're going into an election year, and I think you have enough experience to know what that means.
Yeah.
It's a shorter calendar. There's bigger breaks just because the members are out getting reelected, and so they're out knocking doors and they're in their communities and spending that time. So we do have a shorter calendar. We still have to do a budget, so I think that process starts earlier this year. There's a lot of talk around a supplemental budget that should happen earlier spring, maybe mid to late March.
To cover what?
So we're going to revisit a lot of the things that were cut in work projects and talk about what things should have stayed versus what things should be cut. So members who maybe had a project that lost its funding a couple of weeks ago can go through the new oversight process that was established. I think it's PAs 32 and 33 of this year that provide full transparency in any kind of projects requested by a legislator. So those things will have the opportunity to come back in. There's usually a book closing that has to happen. We have to kind of look and say, okay, put this much money into Medicaid and then we have more than we needed or we didn't have enough. Those kinds of issues. We received more sales tax revenue than we thought, so we need to move money here. So there is some cleanup stuff that takes place with a supplemental, but then I think it's going to give us the opportunity to revisit projects that were lost during the process 2 weeks ago.
Any on your list that you want to see restored?
Yeah, I have a few. I know regionally we took a hit on some things. There was money for Hemlock Semiconductor that I hope is able to still move forward because they're using that money to leverage huge amounts of money through the CHIPS Act in the federal government. So that $40 million in state investment has about $375 million in federal investment to go with it. Saginaw Soup Kitchen, or the East Side Soup Kitchen, lost some funding that I know they are trying to really expand their pickup options that they do, and that had a lot to do with that funding. Frankenmuth had some money in there that they've started to spend, and they have some private investment to go with that we'd really like to see restored. And I know even in Bay City, there's some bridge money for the city. So there's a lot of things that locally took a hit that I think if we had maybe used a scalpel instead of a hammer, would have stayed in the budget anyways. And so we just have to work now to get them back.
Does history tell you that they are returnable?
Well, we're kind of dealing in an area that we haven't been historically. The amount of money being transferred from year to year in work projects now versus a decade ago is just not comparable. I think in the past that there was maybe $25-ish million. This year we transferred $2.1 billion and still didn't transfer another 600. So these are dollars that have been allocated to be spent the state that aren't getting spent in that budget cycle. And so rather than just evaluating, hey, like, does a department really need all that money, or why didn't this project or this grant use that funds? The last few years, we've just transferred them forward and said, well, maybe they'll use it next year. Well, the state's sitting on around $10 billion in these funds.
Wow.
And so I think we need to be evaluating this and looking at this a lot closer than we have been. So historically, there's not a lot of evidence to say what's going to happen in this situation, because we haven't said no to transferring the money before. I think one time in 21, there was $18 million we didn't move forward. So it's the amount of money just doesn't really compare. What we do have, though, is a good working relationship right now amongst members that want to see the right kinds of projects and the right kind of investment happen in the state. And so I think there's a really good opportunity to recover the funds that were lost regionally.
The amount of funds that you spend, of course, is dependent on tax collected. It's supposed to be a good Christmas season. Do you anticipate that we might see an increase in sales tax revenue, for example?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is kind of baked into the projections we have. It tends to be more of the, how do people recover after the Christmas season? What does consumer spending look like after that? Are people traveling? Are they putting money on the roads? Where are they going? Are they continuing to have that same level of consumer confidence after Christmas? I think a lot of times in the holiday season, whether people have the money or not, they still spend it. And then if there's going to be increased spending or decreased spending, we're going to see that after the holidays. So we'll have to gauge that after. But we do have a pretty good budget office that makes those projections, and they do a fairly good job.
All right, hang on. I got to take a break, and we'll be back. We're talking to State Representative Matthew Bierlein from the 97th District, and we will return after these notes.
This is a test of the emergency.
We're back with you here on WSGW, chatting with State Representative Matthew Bierlein. Matthew, we sit here now that we have a budget, and there was a lot of money for two things, roads and education. And I want to start with the education piece, because it seems, to me anyway, we put more and more money into education and the foundational grants and all of that, yet we sit near the bottom of the list in how our students are doing nationwide. It doesn't seem money's the answer. What is the answer?
Real answer, in my opinion, parental involvement, right? I think it's a social constructs of our society have changed a lot over the last few decades, and the degradation of the family is the number one issue. But more specifically to your question, I think we need to return to a lot of fundamentals, and I think we've had some legislation passed that is going to help with that. Rep. Kathy Schmaltz had a bill in the last session that returns us to a phonics-based reading system. When we talk about how did Mississippi go from last to almost first in reading, it's because they returned phonics. I think we need to get back to that and really concentrate on those core fundamentals at an earlier age. I think they're starting to see a lot of research about what kind of distractions we have for kids with how soon we get them on tablets and into technology and those kinds of issues. So I think there's some reevaluation that's happening, and maybe we've been a little bit behind on those, but the quicker we return to fundamentals, the better we're going to see our educational outcomes.
Yeah, it would be nice to move up that ladder, wouldn't it, to say the least?
It would. We need to. It's a crazy world that we live in, and in the way that people can travel and move, and the mobility we have, even just within our own nation. People do leave Michigan for multiple reasons, but if you're going to raise a family, you're going to go where they have the best chance to succeed. And if our educational standards don't meet the muster for the rest of the country, they're going to pick other places.
Yep.
And we know that we have a drain on college-educated young people that leave for other areas, whether it's because they want, a better tax system in Texas, or they want sunnier weather in Florida, or they want better educational opportunities. And I don't think anybody ever thought we would say in Mississippi, but now they can go and do that.
And let's turn to the other topic, roads. There was significant funding for the roads, including the controversial 24% tax on marijuana, wholesale tax. Has that money been distributed? Is it being distributed? How long will it take for the locals to see the dollars?
That passed in for the 26 budget. So in October, distributions. I'm not sure exactly on the distribution timeline or when that new revenue kicks in. It might not be till the first of the year. And then, however, the locals normally receive their distribution through Act 51. They'll continue to do so. The biggest thing for us in increasing the funding was that we didn't want to just increase the funding to the state. We wanted to make sure that it went to the locals. And so as we removed sales tax from gasoline and replaced that with fuel tax so that every penny you pay at the pump goes to roads. And then the new, like you said, the 24% wholesale tax for marijuana, all of that is dedicated road funding that is designed to go to our locals versus put more money in MDOT. So I'm not sure when that distribution takes place, but it should follow the regular pattern that our road commissions and cities and folks like that have been receiving in the past.
Another issue that has come to light more recently, in recent years, is AI data centers. And Selene has become the target because that's the first one going in, and they're huge power consumers. What's your position on data centers in the state of Michigan?
So, data centers create tax revenue because of the industrial personal property tax, but they do not really get a lot of jobs. The legislature in 2024 did pass tax incentives that, if I remember it correctly, it removes sales tax from their equipment purchases to incentivize data centers coming to Michigan. So the legislature took action, the governor signed it, to try and bring them here because they were looking for that extra tax revenue. Now, I think a good tax structure is important for any kind of business, and that's what's one of the pieces that'll help attract people here. But in this case, you're absolutely correct that they use a ton of energy. And we have I don't want to say weakening grid, but as we remove things from, coal and gas and are trying to bring in more, carbon neutral, whether it's wind or solar, that takes battery storage to keep base load. We're trying to bring on we're restarting a nuclear plant. That's a really important piece of all of this. But the amount of energy that data centers take, our grid is not ready for. And the water concerns bring up another piece of it. I've never been able to get a good answer on how much water a data center actually uses and whether, if they pump that water into their system, is that system closed or are they pumping new water in every day? Everybody has a different answer kind of depending on what side of the argument they're on. And so we've got to be, I think, very diligent about how we move forward with these projects. And like I've always said, just like with wind and solar, I think it still comes down to the local unit of government and their zoning and their rules, and that the state shouldn't be able to bypass those things.
You have to wonder, though, if what happened in Selene with all of the debate and the yes they are, no they're not, yes they are, no they're not, if that's going to cause pause to other data centers from thinking about coming into Michigan.
It very well could, and it wouldn't be a surprise if people wanted to stop and reevaluate a little bit. We have a lot of water, and that makes us very attractive to these types of facilities. But they need other things as well. They need that grid reliability. We talk a lot about Hemlock Semiconductor and what they do, and they're the number one energy user in the state of Michigan, because to create that silicon product is very energy intensive. Right. Data centers blow that out of the water, and so we've really got to boost our production and our baseline grid load, and wind and solar just don't quite cover that. And so there's a lot of discussions that really have to happen before I think we're going to see multiple data centers coming into the state.
I wonder if some of these data centers coming in are going to look for land where they have enough room to put in their own solar.
They very well could, and so then there's other conversations that we have to have about. Yeah, I mean that's the conversations we've been having with solar and wind development. Is at what point is taking up farmland too much?
Right. That's the downside, is it takes up farmland. No doubt. Hang on, got to take a quick break. All right, can you hang around?
Absolutely.
All right. We're talking to State Representative Matthew Bierlein. And we will be back. Let me tell you about Quick Lane Freeland on the McDonald Ford property. It's part of McDonald Ford. Quick Lane Freeland is where you should think of first when you think of tires, because they sell all their tires at just $5 over cost. All of that waiting for you at Quick Lane Freeland. And they do have winter tires. And yes, there are winter tires that are different from your everyday tire. And I've asked John from Quick Lane Freeland to tell us about it.
Hello, Art. Yes, winter tires are made with a pliable rubber compound that includes silica to stay flexible and maintain grip in freezing temperatures. Unlike harder all-season tires, which stiffen and lose traction in the cold, this flexible compound allows the tire to better conform to the road surface, providing superior grip and traction on snow and ice to keep you safe.
Thanks, John. Stop in today and have Quick Lane Freeland check your tires and also check your cooling system while you're there. And while they're doing that, you can walk over to the McDonald Ford lot and take a look at all the new Ford product waiting for you, as well as their extensive pre-owned line where they have vehicles for every budget. It all happens for you at Quick Lane Freeland. Your routine service should all be done at Quick Lane Freeland and McDonald Ford, two names that stand ready to help you with all your automotive needs, and they wish you the best this holiday season. A very, very Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah, and we will be back.
December 30th at Soaring.
And we are back with you, talking to Deputy 97th District State Representative Matthew Bierlein. And this time of year, Matthew, you know, we have elections coming next year. Do you reasonably think anything's going to get done next year?
I do. I think there's some big priorities. There's been huge pushes statewide. There was a ballot issue that I don't think is going to get the signatures required to make it on the ballot. But, the governor's candidates are talking about it. Reps are talking about it. Senators are talking about it. And that has to do with property tax reform. So I think there's going to be a big push in the coming year on taking a hard look at our property taxes and what we can do to make them work better for people. I think it's a huge issue. The bump up from when somebody sells their house, it's astronomical right now. People who've been in their home for 20 years are paying much lower property taxes than maybe their neighbors who just bought. But it's also restricting that flow of homes on the market. If you have an older couple who's ready to downsize, they're going to pay more in property taxes for a house half the size, and so they don't leave. And it makes sense why they wouldn't leave, but then that house doesn't become available for a younger family, and it's just perpetuating problem. And so I think we're going to take a really hard look at that in the coming year. That's
one of several problems facing housing today, isn't it? Housing is a major issue.
It is. There's a lot of pieces to that conversation. You can talk about regulation and zoning requirements. If you talk to the Home Builders Association, they'll tell you it's over $90,000. Every home is just meeting the current regulations for building a home. That doesn't mean those are all bad. And some of them might even save you money in the long run, but it's still a discussion that needs to be had, is what regulations make sense and which ones don't. And then one thing that, this might be an unpopular opinion, but I think we probably need to talk quite a bit about what constitutes a starter home versus what people think should constitute a starter home. My first house after I moved out of my parents was 1,000 square feet, had 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom.
All right, let's stop there for a minute. Let's just so you bring up an interesting point. We'll take your 1,000 square foot home. At one time, you could probably build one of those homes for $80 to $100 a square foot, not too many years ago, and you could probably sell it for $100, $125, and be reasonably happy with the results, and you'd have a decent starter home. That home today, you can't get in it for probably under $350,000, $400,000, yet it's the same size starter home that it was years ago. And that is a problem. The cost of building today is out of sight, isn't it?
It really is. It's extremely expensive. Materials are certainly a piece of that. And the labor costs have gone up, and that's a part of it as well. You don't want to take away that from the folks who make a living building homes. And then if you talk about that same house, right, 1,000 square feet, well, if 90,000 of it is regulation, and then you go to a 2,000 square foot home and 90,000 of its regulation, there's the overhead differences are pretty drastic there. And so it makes it hard to build smaller homes, but you still have the material costs and the labor costs in that bigger home, and that just drives that price up even higher. So it really is an issue. Part of, there are some differences based on where you live, and you want to live in town or in a rural community or a small town. But we built our house, I think we're going on 10 years, and it was still right around $135 a foot when we built our house.
Mm-hmm. Reasonable.
We talked about putting an addition on a couple of years ago, and it was $330 a square foot. It was,
yep.
Maybe we'll finish the basement.
Yeah, yourself.
Right.
It's just, it is. It's really unfortunate because at a time when we're looking to add employment in the state of Michigan, add population to the state of Michigan, where are we going to house them? I suspect the answer is going to be in a lot more multifamily dwellings being built than single homes.
For sure. Once you've gone through that permitting and regulatory process, and you can spread that overhead off onto multiple units, foundation and roof are some of the most expensive pieces. So if you can spread that out over, different apartments, but I think people still have the desire to own.
Oh, I do too.
And so that is another piece of it. You can't just build apartments that are going to be, for rent forever. People want to have a home, and whether that's a condo in a downtown or a single family unit, in a small town or out in the country, we've just got to find a way to make this work. And there's multiple property taxes as a part of that. The regulatory base is a part of that. And then really talking about how can we improve the affordability of manufacturing in a home.
Yeah. All right, one more segment, and then we'll let you go. But let me take a quick break, and we'll be back with Matthew Bierlein, 97th District State Representative.
Thrivent is a proud sponsor.
Well, we'll move on to something else. I know you are a big supporter of police. And in recent times, particularly ever since the George Floyd thing, agencies have had trouble filling positions. State police, if they put out a class of 100, if they get enough to fill it, they're lucky, where they used to get hundreds and hundreds of applications. What are we going to do to attract young people into law enforcement? There seems to be, on the local level anyway, I wouldn't call it a resurgence, but an increase in interest. Let's put it that way. Any thoughts?
It's a tough one. I think we're constantly looking for ways to help with that. There's a lot of agencies now they're paying for folks to go to the academy to cover those upfront costs.
Yep.
They're revisiting retirement plans, increasing benefits. Pay is a factor, but it's also it's a stress level. It's making sure that we are giving people who do come into the workforce